Yes, von Braun was absolutely brilliant, but he had a humanity about him that was recognized and understood by everyone. One example was one of the early Redstone rockets exploded and was completely destroyed. And this was a huge setback. And the next day, a guy came to von Braun and said, "I want to apologize." And von Braun said, "Apologize?" "Yes," he said, "I'm sorry, but it was my fault." He said, "What do you mean?" "Well, I accidentally left a tool inside the Redstone when I was working on it, and I have no doubt that that ruptured the tank and caused the explosion." And he's sitting there expecting to be fired. And von Braun looked at the man and he said, "Thank you." "Thank me? Why do you say that?" And he said, "Because when you came and told me the truth of what had happened, you have saved us a lot of money and a lot of time. Because now we don't have to have an investigation to try to understand why the rocket exploded. We know the answer. Now all we have to do is make sure nobody accidentally leaves a tool on the inside of a rocket." So this kind of a story would go all over, and it was his appreciation for truth and honesty and the way in which he treated people that was known to everyone who worked here and was known to everyone throughout the entire space program. But another aspect of it was von Braun's brilliance. I went to meetings with von Braun previously, and someone would be giving a presentation where at that point in time we didn't have PowerPoint, we had view graphs. And you would make your view graph and put it on a view graph projector, which would essentially project the transparent photographs to a screen by having light underneath the view graph projector. And you would focus it onto the screen, and you would go through these one at a time to make your presentation. And von Braun, on this one occasion that I recall, he came in about 15 minutes late. And the guy who was making the presentation stopped what he was doing and started again at the beginning, and he would throw a slide up on the screen, and von Braun would look at it and then give a signal, and he would go to the next one. And he flipped right through these slides one after the other and very, very quickly went through the presentation up to the point where he was, and von Braun had absorbed everything that he was saying and was then ready to proceed on. This was basically, he had a knowledge and an understanding of essentially all aspects of what was going on, not just at the Marshall Space Flight Center, but throughout the vastly distributed area around the country of the development of the Saturn V launch vehicle and the entire moon program. He was not just a wonderful leader, he was a brilliant scientist, he was a great politician, he was able to make presentations to Congress and get money devoted to the program, and he was a salesman. He told America why it was important to go to the moon. Sitting there is a Time magazine with a picture of von Braun and the Explorer 1 launch on that 25-cent copy of Time. And that particular magazine and the series of articles that von Braun wrote for Collier's essentially told the American people about the space program. I don't think there was anyone that he met that he didn't genuinely respect and like. And in fact, throughout my entire career at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center and throughout my work within the space program, I have never met a single person that didn't like Wernher von Braun. Now, that kind of popularity is astonishing because generally people do and say things that cause others to be angry about them or to not like what they've done. Now, granted, there were people in the general community that were told, "Oh my gosh, he was a Nazi, and therefore he should be hated." Well, in point of fact, just about everyone who was doing anything in Germany during World War II, you either were a Nazi or you were executed, because it was an iron grip that Adolf Hitler had over all of the people within his country. But von Braun was developing rockets, not carrying out the kind of atrocities that were being done to the general public, and particularly people that were under the grip of Adolf Hitler. So von Braun came to America, and he made friends everywhere he went. He was admired and respected by politicians, and he was able to effectively get money that was necessary to have a space program. So if it had not been for Wernher von Braun, we would not have the kind of space program that we do today. We would not be the nation that we are today, because most people don't realize, but so many of the things that we have today came about as a result of the space program. I have a fascinating story. I worked in an astronautics laboratory, and one of the members of the Peenemünde team, a red-headed guy by the name of Wilhelm Angeli, worked down the hall from me. And Angeli was a very, very wonderful and brilliant man, and he had become concerned because if you look at the instrument unit for the Saturn V, you see these big round bundles of cables that connect to a connector, and that has to connect to the other, the male portion connects to the female portion of the connector, and there are round clumps of wires. Very, very complicated to make sure everything goes everywhere. Well, Angeli realized, wait, we can take a small tray and put these wires down parallel to each other and then pot them in a kind of flexible plastic and have a connector to each end, and then everything is orderly. And he called this the flat conductor cable when he patented it. As I recall, Wilhelm Angeli got a NASA patent award for about $500 when he patented something called the flat conductor cable. Of course, the flat conductor cable is used in just about everything you can imagine today, all the way from radios and televisions to automobiles and spacecraft, and essentially anywhere that you have wires going, it is using flat conductor cables. The technology that he developed has been worth many, many, many billions of dollars, but he got a $500 NASA award. Von Braun probably contributed more to the development of modern technology than any other single individual in my lifetime. Von Braun was not just a great genius, he was an inspiration. And in fact, he inspired an entire generation of rocket scientists, of astronomers, of astronauts. He was a unique individual. We don't have many people on the planet Earth that have the character and the quality and the ability to get people to do things like von Braun did. So he was a great politician. He was able to get the politicians to do what he wanted them to do. But first and foremost, he was a great scientist and engineer. And so he was basically the beacon of thought for what was done. Behind us, we have von Braun's office, or actually a replica of von Braun's office. And in fact, it's quite intriguing because this office looks very much, except for being smaller, much smaller, but the items that are in there are the same items that I remember being there from my first visit to Dr. von Braun, from my first meeting with him in his office, which would have happened sometime around 1968. And those items, the books, are the same books that he had on this low bookshelf. We know that because I remember them, but also because we have photographs of his office, and that was used to arrange his books, his actual books, in the proper order. We have one of his workbooks, and one of the fascinating things is it had all of the tasks that had to be done throughout the entire center on the development of all aspects of the Saturn V, and it's rather intriguing because if you look at it, you see all of these tasks listed, and then there will be bright red lines that are on each side of tasks, and when those red lines are put there, that means that particular task has been satisfactorily completed. The ones that don't have the red marks on each side of them are those that still are in work and have not yet been finished. And that was how von Braun kept track of everything that he did and everything that was going on. In fact, sitting right behind the Time magazine, there's von Braun's briefcase, which was like a satchel, a leather satchel. And every morning he would go into his office and he would open that satchel up and dump it out on his secretary's desk and say, "I did my homework." Von Braun had several fascinating quirks. I lived on Governor's Drive, and right below my house I had a huge picture window, and right below my house, about 3 doors down, was the house that belonged to Werner von Braun. And it was intriguing because he didn't like doing lawn work. So you go to his house today and there's still no lawn. It was covered with asphalt, which he painted green. So he had some very interesting ways of solving problems. And in fact, von Braun's attitude was that basically every problem that there had to be a solution to it. As I said, it's important to realize that you can do the impossible. It just takes a little longer.